Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Your Intention Matters, the podcast. Thank you very much for joining us on this one again. My name, of course, is still Paul Madot. Today, I have James Lakes, Senior Vice President of Sales for the Healthcare Providers Division at a little-known company called Salesforce.com, coming to us from just outside of Nashville. Do I have that right, James?
That is correct, Paul.
Good, man. Well, listen, do me a favor. Say hi to everybody. Thanks for being here. Provide a quick intro, and then let's jump into your episode.
Well, hey, thanks, Paul. Thanks for the opportunity. Hi, everyone out there in podcast land. My name is James Lakes, as Paul mentioned. I work for a small company called Salesforce. Previously, I've worked for other small, large companies, right. VMware being one, where I spent 3 years of my life building out a healthcare vertical there, and then 16 at a little company up in the Pacific Northwest called Microsoft. So I tend to navigate towards some of these large software, large platform companies. I've been in the healthcare IT space for over 20 years. Prior to that, I played a little professional basketball in Europe for 8 years. I got the bad knees and bad back to show for that. But one of the things I always talk about, Paul, is the transition from being a sports athlete to a corporate athlete. A lot of the skills that I picked up playing basketball and team sports and even coaching young kids growing up, it allowed me to do a lot of the things I do today, even more so sometimes than what I've learned, getting my master's degree and all that other stuff.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Father, husband, both, neither?
I am a father, a husband. I'm a girl dad. So I've got two daughters, two teenage daughters, 18 and 15. Maya's the 18-year-old. Emma's the 15-year-old. Actually, we just spent the whole weekend in Charlotte at the AAU basketball tournament. So it's AAU season for a lot of us out there. So parents, I know that you're traveling with your kids, you're driving, you're flying, you're staying in hotels and Airbnbs across the country. Thank you for leaning in with your children. It's important to them. It's important in their growth. It's important for their development. It's important for us to spend that time. And I know we're all busy professionals, but I actually enjoy being in the car and on the road, listening to their music, watching them develop as players and young people, and just interacting with all the parents and coaches out there. It's a lot of fun.
Well, James, I appreciate you being here. And I'm a father of a daughter as well, Victoria. She's 8 going on like 28. It's one of the, like that movie 13 going on 30. It is so darn true, man. It's crazy. And so with that said, I appreciate you being here. And, James, we've been talking about the podcast before I hit record. Your Intention Matters really built on my foundation, and nothing is given to any of us. And most of us in the world of selling in particular never thought we'd even get into sales, let alone sustain any type of career. No script, no pre-questions. We're just going to go. And with that said, you ready to get into it?
I am, man. Let's have some fun.
So let's get into it then. So we go back in time on this podcast. Let's go late 80s. And you take me back further if you want, but let's go back maybe St. Mary's College, bachelor's of business admin, accounting, computer science. I don't see a sales career in there anywhere. And can you tell me, if you go back to that time, did you have a vision for what you thought you'd be doing? Or were you like most of us, just kind of figure it out?
I actually thought I was going to be an accountant, to be honest with you. I was doing some night auditing with a hotel chain in Detroit, where I was born and raised. I was doing internships with Coopers and Lybrand back in the day. So people might not remember who it is, predecessor to PwC. And I thought I was going to be an accountant. I had a day of reckoning. We had a company picnic on a place called Belle Isle in Detroit. And my best friend and I and our girlfriends went. We had shorts, t-shirts on, and gloves and basketballs, thinking it was going to be a picnic. We get there, everybody's in Dockers and polo shirts. All the ladies are in sundresses, and all the kids are pretty much in shorts and polo shirts. We're like, uh-oh, we're there for a different thing. So we went to a local mall, got some different clothes because we didn't want to drive all the way back out to the suburbs to get stuff. We put on clothes, went around the island that day, and it was a lot of fun, but I realized that I wasn't quite ready for that world. So I signed a contract to go play basketball in Europe that night, took off, and I was actually in Europe for almost 12 years following that. So it wasn't the path I thought, but that's where it started. And then when you ask how I got to sales, it's a pretty funny story. Never thought that I was going to be in sales. It was, it wasn't something. I think a lot of us have that same situation. But I was working on doing some consulting, management consulting, and I got a chance. My mentor put me in front of the board of a large financial institution in Denmark. And he had, we had prepared this pitch, and then he had me deliver it. And I didn't know I was delivering it until that morning. But when I did, one thing happened. The chairman of the board, CEO of this institution, basically looked at me, and he stopped me about 5 minutes into the presentation. Said, "Hey, stop. And so I thought I really blew it. But he made a statement. He said, "Look, one thing's that you're speaking, really fluent Danish in this boardroom, but you're the first Black man in this boardroom. How did you get here?"
Okay.
Right. So he couldn't concentrate on my pitch because he was so enthralled trying to figure out, who is this guy? Where did he learn Danish? How did he get in this boardroom? Right. So he and I went back and forth for 10 or 15 minutes just about my journey and how I wound up in that boardroom. And it was really interesting. Then I realized I could sell stuff. I actually could tell good, compelling stories, which is a lot of what we do in sales. And I could land a message that resonated with an audience that was diverse, far different than I am in background, in history, in culture, in a number of ways. And that's when I started to think about sales. And then fast forward a few months, I'm on another project, and we win it. And the sales guy shows me a text message with his bonus from the sale. And I go, wait a minute, I'm doing all the work. I want some of that. So that's how I migrated up to the sales side, my friend.
So, James, you talk about going to Denmark to play ball. That's not something that everybody can just do. And I've never been to Denmark, and I've been to Detroit, and I've been to Europe many times. And I got to believe that Detroit and Denmark were about as polar opposite as they come in terms of the cities and the cultures and lifestyle. And so what was the transition like to go to Denmark and kind of set up shop there?
It was interesting. I've always tried to figure out, how do you excel in any environment you're in and be adaptable? I think, there's a scene in a movie about the notorious B.I.G. where the guy who's playing Puff Daddy, or Sean Combs, says, "You can throw me into the jungle and I'll come out with a chinchilla fur on," right?
Right.
and I kind of adapted that way. Any environment that I get put in, I tend to try to adjust to it and be as successful as possible. And so going into Denmark, it was the same thing. You pick up a language, you have a different culture, different mindset, and you can do it. You can approach it two ways. You can approach it closed-minded and try and hold on to what you know, or you could try to embrace this new situation and figure out you could pick up new skills, new perspectives, new ideas. And so I've always done that in every situation, and it's served me well so far.
Did you go with the mindset of 1 year and see how it plays out? Or did you go with, no, I'm going to be here for a while?
Nah, man, I never thought I was staying that long. But then I built some very good relationships that still sit with me today. I got my master's degree at the University of Copenhagen Business School. I picked up just a broad set of knowledge and perspectives from some great people along the way, which led me to Microsoft and a great 16-year ride there, and then to VMware and subsequently now at Salesforce. I can say that a lot of it has been, not planned. It's just being prepared, working at my craft, honing it, listening, learning, and taking advantage of things when they present themselves.
Were there any outside thoughts or aspirations of pulling a Tony Kukoc and getting drafted and NBA ball? Nothing like that?
Not that good. And the guys who are out there who play this game know that there's levels to this stuff. And when you get on the floor with the guys that really do it, you recognize that you're not on that level.
Because James, you were right there, man. The Last Dance. If you watch it on Netflix, you could have been drafted by the Bulls, right? That final run. Who knows?
No, it's the same conversation I have with my daughter and other kids. They all have different aspirations, and they do their work. But understanding the different levels and what it takes to succeed at those levels, in the sacrifice as we made, the focus as we made, the time that it takes.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about passion. Like, my dad taught me that, if you're passionate about something, it gives you an opportunity to be great. Doesn't mean you'll be great, but it gives you the opportunity to be great. If you're not passionate about it, Paul, you can be good sometimes, even very good, but it's hard to get to greatness because you got to get up and do it even when you're tired, when you're hurting, you're mentally not there, you don't feel like it. But if you want to be great at it, man, you gotta bring that passion every day and come back at it harder, better, with that mindset. And that's not easy to do if you're not passionate about it.
And so, James, what was behind the decision? First of all, how old were you when this happened? And what was behind the decision to leave Denmark? And did you come back to the States?
We came back to the States in 2002. I got an offer to join Microsoft that I couldn't refuse. And I was always fascinated with Microsoft. You look at one of the world's most esteemed brands, an incredible story with Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer and now Satya Nadella. Great leaders, great insight, and they've had their journeys of ups and downs and stagnation and ultra growth and then things like that. And just always fascinated. And I also thought about partnerships was the thing. I was fascinated by Microsoft's partner ecosystem. I believe in team sports, right? I believe in team selling, team winning, and partners are an important part of that. And Microsoft was doing it better than anybody on the planet. And I would argue still is.
James, in your intro, you mentioned bad back, bad knees. Did you get hurt playing ball, or was it just your time to move on to something next?
Well, ruptured the patella, ruptured Achilles. I don't know. They did an MRI on my knee and my ankles some years back, and it's like, just the scar tissue that's in there, and it's bad, man. It's I'm just an old 50-year-old plus athlete, and we all go through it, man. It's a price we pay for doing what we love.
You mentioned that you're from Detroit. When you came back to the States from Denmark, did you land back in Detroit, or did you move out into the Northwest? You did.
Yeah, no,
okay.
we landed back in Detroit. I was newly married. My wife was going through starting medical residency. We just felt it would be easier to be in Detroit with family and friends as we were starting our new family. We were there for only 5 years. We both got tired of the cold, and then we moved south. And I get the questions from family and friends, am I ever moving back up north? And as much as I love it up there, no more major winters for me.
Was the part of the transition to Tennessee now with obviously you were still with Microsoft, you said 16 plus years with the company. And so did you raise your hand to say I wanted to move, or was there an opportunity that kind of prompted the move outside of weather?
It was two things, right? My wife we had decided we wanted to be someplace warm. So she wanted to start her own family practice. So we looked at markets that were growing: Charlotte, Phoenix, San Diego, Austin, Nashville. I was coming into Nashville quite often as Microsoft is building out the healthcare vertical. As you know, Nashville is a big healthcare town. So I was coming in here often. We thought, hey, if I moved to Nashville, I might not have to travel as much. Well, as soon as we did that, of course, I get a national role and I'm traveling anyway, so it didn't matter. But it's been a fantastic place to grow and learn, especially in the healthcare space.
I didn't hear Green Bay. I didn't hear Toronto. I didn't hear Calgary. I didn't hear Wisconsin. I didn't hear Minnesota in there.
Well, it's funny, right? If my 5 favorite cities on the planet, 3 of them are in cold climates: Copenhagen, Chicago, and Toronto.
Totally.
I just don't want to live there in the wintertime.
Well, listen, as a guy who lives in 4 seasons all year round, I have to tell you, I don't blame you, man, for not wanting to be there when it's 24 degrees out and so on. And so the transition from your hometown, Detroit, 5 years, were you a dad at this point when you made the move?
Yes. So my oldest was 4, and my youngest was, when we moved, I think she was 7 months old.
All right. So they've only known really life in Tennessee then, for the most part, even though they were raised elsewhere or they were born elsewhere. The move to the South, so to speak, was it an easy one for your family?
I think about it, outside of family and friends, it was relatively painless. We kind of found some neighbors that we vibed with pretty well. Got to know some folks, and then a funny story is a young lady that I coached in Denmark as a teenager. I'm on Facebook. It's maybe the first week we're here at launch. Hey, we moved to Nashville, and she responds to me, says, "Hey, I live in Nashville." And I said, "Well, actually, I don't live in Nashville. I live in Murfreesboro." Well, she lived in Murfreesboro, went to Middle Tennessee State. I hadn't seen her since she was a young teen. Played at Middle Tennessee State. lived 5 minutes away from me. She and her fiance came by the house, and history's there. So the world is smaller than you think sometimes. And so we built a great relationship with them and their friends, and we built kind of an ecosystem around us, allowed us to help raise daughters and be effective in this community.
You know, James, your time with Microsoft, you know, I spent about 10 years at Xerox and, you know, a market leader, different industry, but with a global organization like that, there's usually an unwritten rule or expectation that you do a job for 2 to 3 years, and you get into another job 2 to 3 years, and so on and so on. And so was that kind of your plan going into Microsoft initially, or was it much like going to Denmark? Okay, I got a job and we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. That 2-3 year journey was exactly it. I pretty much changed jobs every 3 years or so, and some of those were promotions. Some of those were lateral moves. One of the things I advise a lot of people on, that not all lateral moves are bad moves. Sometimes lateral moves allow you to get different perspectives, put new arrows in your quiver, so to speak, that make you more effective when you do go for that next promotion. So I always advise people, don't always think vertically, but think more of a zigzag sometimes. And you might pick up a lot of valuable relationships and insights along the way.
You know, James, whenever I have a guest who's on has a career like yours, where you spend a decade plus with a global powerhouse in a Microsoft or a Salesforce that you're at now, or a Xerox or so on, you know, there's people that are checking out this episode, and you might experience this in your current role right now, where there just doesn't seem to be the level of interest, either from the employee side to the employer side and vice versa, employers to employees, to stay any length of time within an organization. You'll see a LinkedIn profile, and you'll see 8 years in a career, and they've got 4 different companies under 8 years. And it's like this, it just seems to be like 18 months, 2 years, they're jumping ship to a whole other company, not even a lateral move inside the company. And so there's people that I know checking out this episode who hear 16 plus years with one company, granted multiple jobs, they can't even fathom that.
Yeah.
Like, and so I'm curious about, the decision to leave Microsoft after that length of time. I mean, you must have established ridiculous relationships, long runway with the company. It's all you knew, really. Mm-hmm. And so did you raise your hand, or did someone pluck you out?
Someone plucked me out.
Yeah.
A gentleman, his name's Michael Robinson, and I'm going to give him kudos here. He's one of the most fantastic people and leaders I've ever been around. And he shaped, you know, my leadership philosophy, you know, and how I approach things significantly over the years. And so he plucked me out of Microsoft. I had, you know, I thought I was retiring from Microsoft. I wasn't looking. I wasn't unhappy. There was no indication that Microsoft was unhappy with me. So it was just, hey, I got an opportunity to go tinker and build and get some new experiences with a leader that I trusted, a leader that I know, and a leader that presented an opportunity that I thought would be interesting to try.
How long was that process from when you first maybe entertained the idea to when you actually, you know, tendered your resignation?
Oh, I think he mentioned he had been there a year before he started talking to me, and he had mentioned it. And, hey, you think you might want to consider? And I was like, yeah, it wasn't really a thought. And then about 6 months before I made the move, it intensified. And it at the time, it made sense. You know, in hindsight, I don't have any regrets, because I did pick up a new perspective. When you're at a company like Microsoft that's so pervasive and so talented and so really good at what it does, you tend to believe everybody operates that way. They don't. And so now you go to an organization who has some value and some capabilities, but different than the one you came from. Yeah. And man, it opened up some new skills that I hadn't used in a long time, and allowed me to have some fun doing that, which then I think actually helped me as I made the transition to Salesforce, because now I've dabbled in some other things, picked up some new thoughts and some new perspectives, and then also, you know, understood what good looks like from big platform companies, from a cloud and productivity perspective and data perspective, to infrastructure, and now a pure SaaS player that's doing some incredible things across all industries. I'm loving the ride at Salesforce so far.
Did you take any time off, hand your resignation in on a Friday, or were you back at it on Monday, or did you take some time off?
Each time I took a month off.
Did you?
Okay. I think you got to kind of,
yeah.
I took the month off to recharge the batteries a little bit, but also to clear my head of where I was coming from. So I was more willing to accept where I was going. So, just kind of take some of the baggage off, take some of the things off, drop it on the floor, and get ready to pick up a new coat, so to speak, or a new bag.
And you were able to stay in the greater Nashville area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been fortunate. Now, there's been times when I've been, I passed up on roles that required that I moved. But, with especially with teenage daughters, moving is could be a daunting task. My wife had a thriving practice here. It just didn't fit. I had to think of if it was just me, I could have packed up and moved. But, you got to have other considerations.
Yeah, but you would have moved with an asterisk, right?
Yeah. No cold weather places, my friend.
Exactly,
no cold weather places.
Exactly. Right there in big bold, right there. And so, 16 plus years with one company, again, I'm sure great relationships and, established yourself. Was the grass greener for you at VMware? Were you happy there?
I was ecstatic. I've met some great people. Sanjay Poonen, I'm going to give a shout out to him, incredible leader. Built a really good relationship with him. Lynn Martin, who ran our public sector and healthcare businesses, she's at Google now. Phenomenal. I got a chance to just meet some great Pat Geselmer, just empathetic. He and Satya are maybe two of the most empathetic leaders I've ever seen. They ooze it, which attracts people. So no, I had a great ride there, and I wasn't really looking to leave VMware, but then a former Microsoft colleague was leading healthcare and life sciences at Salesforce, and he needed someone to lead his provider business, and he plucked me out of VMware.
So James, you joined VMware when? What time? What year is
2018, winter 2018.
So 2018, okay. And then you joined Salesforce when?
In 2021.
2021. Okay. So then you're at VMware when the world shuts down in March of 20. So you're pretty much there for like a year and a bit, year and a half maybe. And so, I don't pretend to know enough about VMware to know that other than the pandemic having a massive impact on us globally in terms of how we lived and operated and accessed each other, how did you manage that time? Like, were you guys ready for this on some level? Was the transition to virtual like arduous and you had to figure it out? Or just talk to me about that time, because there was so much going on. Like, anybody who was around who has any memory of 2020 knows that it was just uniquely unique, and it just took a different way of doing things with clients, with companies you work with, and employees and colleagues. And so how did you manage, still relatively new to the organization, really?
Yeah, it's interesting. One, I've been fortunate to be in the IT business for a while and working with companies that work remote quite often. And in a sales organization, a lot of times we're either on the road, we work from home, or occasionally we're in our office or our office location. But I was never been in an office location 100% of the time over the last 20 plus years. So I was used to working out of the house, and my family was used to having me work out of the house when I wasn't traveling sometimes. So it wasn't a big transition there. I think, what we did see was the impact with our relationship with customers, right? You're a sales organization. A lot of sales folks get their energy from the interpersonal interaction, and we lost some of that. And you could see our team struggle. You can see individuals in particular struggle without that oxygen, so to speak, of interpersonal reactions. And while we're on this podcast and we're on video, we have some interaction, but it's just not the same as being in a room and feeling that energy. And so I think that was the hardest thing for a lot of us. I think we all woke up, and really, there were some bouts of depression. There was some lostness. We weren't doing what we normally love to do. Yeah. We were finding new ways to do it, but it just wasn't the same. And I think what we saw, I've been at a couple of conferences over the last couple of months, and the energy at the conference, just to be out, shake hands, give hugs, laugh, see people you haven't seen in 2 years, and physically be in rooms with them. We missed it. And in sales, I think it's an important part of what we do. Now, I don't think we're ever going back to the level of interpersonal interaction that we had, or in-person interactions that we had. So we have to adjust. There's going to be a balance. I don't think very few companies are going back to, every day in the office type activities. So we're all going to be in this kind of hybrid world for the foreseeable future, if not forever. And so our skill sets need to be different. How we engage needs to be different. We have to practice different things that play out differently when you're virtual versus when you're in person.
Yeah, so well said. I thought you might actually have said that you would plan. I know you have some property over in Greece. Was there ever any plans to pick up and work
Man,
remotely from
if we
there?
had known what was going to happen, we would have taken off for Greece. But once we found out, it was too late.
Yeah.
The island was shut down. There was no getting over at that point. But yeah, if I had known in February or March it was going to be that way, we'd have hopped on a plane and worked out of Greece for a year. The kids were virtual most of the time anyway, so
Sure.
we could have made it work.
So let's talk about Salesforce. So you leave a Goliath in Microsoft, and you go to VMware, which was no slouch in terms of an organization at all. And then Salesforce comes calling. And so again, that process to move on, were you drawn right away? Was it a long thought process of what
Now
do I
that
want
one
to
was
do next?
short. That was short. Salesforce its culture is phenomenal, and I want to commend Mark Benioff and Brett Taylor and those guys for how they lean into that. This might be the most inclusive company I've experienced in my 20 plus years career. And similar to Microsoft and VMware, it was both of those were number one in their respective spaces. I was going to another number one. So I guess I navigate toward the top guys more than I do the number twos, number threes. But Salesforce is a well-known brand. It has an incredible empathetic approach to the community. When Mark talks about business being a system for change, he means it, and we act on it, and it's pretty cool to be a part of. So I'm enjoying it. I have nothing but great stuff to say. My wife even says, she sees me smile more now than she's even seen the previous years when I was happy at Microsoft and VMware. So, hey man, we just keep moving and keep enjoying it and building really solid organizations and professionals. And, I tell my team all the time, one of the things I learned from one of my coaches is do the right thing the right way every day. Let the chips fall where they may. And if you do that, the chips are more likely going to fall where you need them to fall. You'll get some you weren't supposed to get. You'll get most of those you're supposed to get. And every once in a while, you're going to lose some, and you'll learn from that too. But at the end of the day, that's what you can control is your mindset, right thing, right way, every day.
James, do you know Colin Nanka?
I've heard the name, not
Yeah.
familiar. I've heard about some of his work, but I've never dove into it, but yeah.
So Colin is a colleague of yours at Salesforce, and I've known him for years. He worked at Xerox with me for a long time, and I remember I had him on the podcast. We got talking away about Salesforce, and he echoed what you said in terms of the sentiment of the company. And one of the things that I respected about Salesforce very early on, this was before your time with them, but when the pandemic really came down, and there was this mass rush to furlough all kinds of people in April of 20, like the numbers hadn't even impacted the quarterly numbers or anything. It was just this proactive. And I remember, well, I've never met the man, Mark, was it Benioff?
Benioff, yeah.
Benioff had said, hey, listen, I want to put it out there, calling on all maybe global CEOs, why don't we just put a cap on this for 90 days and let's just see how this plays out. Why are we laying people off right away? And when that happened, I thought, what a cool decision, because we're talking about people's lives here. And it's not, you can't just shut it off. And so I'm not surprised to hear you say that the sentiment within the company is very inclusive, and sounds like the decision to move there has been working out for you.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I'll share something, and I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but I thought it was an extremely empathetic and inclusive thing to do. There was a controversial abortion law passed in Texas last year. And you saw two reactions. You saw people on both sides kind of arguing about it, and then you saw companies respond as well. Some, hey, we're pulling out of Texas, we're closing our office. Some were like, hey, we embrace it, we're going to Texas. Mark made a very interesting statement, which I thought was maybe one of the most inclusive statements I've heard from him. He didn't say we're leaving. He didn't say we're going. He said, hey, we're there. We have employees are there. We love them. Hey, if you feel compromised by this law or feel negative or think is something you can't live with, we at Salesforce will help you help you move, right? But if you're comfortable, we'll support you there too. That is inclusive. He's taking into consideration everyone and trying to find an optimal way to approach all of them to meet them where they are, right? Not make a decision for them, but meet them where they are and then enable them to make whatever decision they wanted to make. That is inclusive. That is equity. That is thinking beyond your own personal preferences or opinions. I thought it was a pretty inclusive thing to do.
Yeah, you know what? I remember when that happened as well, which I thought was great, because you're right. There's it seems very black and white, and there's some people on the side of the coin who are very anti-red, pro-blue, vice versa, and it's not so cut and dry when you're talking about people's lives here. And so I thought the move to say, hey, listen, we're going to stay. If you want to stay, we want you here. But if you're not happy here for whatever reason because of what's going on out of Austin, then we got your back, and
we got your back too.
We'll help you move around.
And I think we're seeing more of this from leaders, right? And we need this from leaders. And I'm really happy that he did that. And I've seen him do other things, and the organization do other things over the past year. I'm coming up on my year anniversary. That's just been phenomenal, and I can't say enough about it.
James, you've had quite the run. I mean, I appreciate you sharing your story. Everything from a desire to, be punching numbers and crunching data and to being an accountant, to moving over to Europe and playing pro ball for a while, and then coming back to Detroit and joining Microsoft, starting a family in Detroit. You realize, that weather, okay, we can probably do it, but we have choices in the US. Why do we stay? Let's go south. And Microsoft is a good enough company to make the move with you. And then you land in Nashville, 16 plus years with the organization. You make the move to VMware. It was a great move for you. And then Salesforce, thought enough of you to reach out to you in the middle of the pandemic. And yet here you are. And so I appreciate you taking the time to share your story. I just have one more question for you. All right. So we're recording this right now, end of April, 2022. Round 1 of the NBA playoffs are going on right now.
Oh, wow.
Who's taking it all? You got to say my Raptors, by the way. That's the only answer.
You see the purple and gold behind me. I'm a diehard Lakers fan, so this has been a rough year for us. I'm gonna stick with the champs right now. I'm gonna stick with the Bucks. I think, I think Chris Middleton being injured could play into that a little bit and hurt them. But everyone's getting injured now. Devin Booker for Phoenix. We got other issues and other teams. So. But I'm going to stick with Giannis right now because I think he's a indomitable force right now, and he can impose his will like no other player in the league right now. And I think there's going to be some moments where he's going to do that, and that's going to lift them over the top right now.
It's always tough to knock off the champs, right?
It's always, hey, they've been there. They're battle tested. They're ready to go.
True. Well, listen, James, thanks so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time to share your story. It's been a lot of fun.
It was fun, Paul, and thank you for doing this. I've got a chance to listen to a couple of these. Hopefully the audience enjoyed our conversation and I didn't hurt your ratings, but at the end of the day, I really enjoyed it, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No ratings hurt at all. Believe me, it was a great episode. And okay, everyone, we're going to wrap it up right now. Remember, your intention matters. Why? Because that's the result you'll tend to get. We're out of here. We'll do it again next week. And it's game 5 tonight. Raptors, Sixers. Let's go Raps. Thank you.